Okay, we live now. Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk About It with Xavia Fox. I am here in Chicago today. You know, we were in Milwaukee on Friday. If you tuned in, then we had a great time. We're gonna have a Chicago good time today. We got a nice live audience in the house. Yep. Make a little noise. Let them know that you're here. All right. Yep, they here. Okay, and we'll be here every first Sunday at 2:30. That's what we're gonna do now. Okay, so if you are watching on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, or Facebook, make sure that you follow or subscribe, whatever they tell you to do, so that you can get notifications for all of the upcoming shows. Because we're going to have a good time. Of course, First Financial Friday is coming up. This Friday, we'll have Boca Warjahola. I always have a problem pronouncing his name, but he gives some great information on finances and how to build wealth. But today, I'm here with a 3-man panel. I've never done that before. I wonder if I'm going to want to do it again. I don't know. We're going to see what's going on up here. I'm ready for them, but, you know, they might not be ready for me because, well, okay. Anyway, so we are going to start with, okay, so Okara, you and Anthony play rock, paper, scissors. We going to see who wins.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Rock. Well, Okara has done shows with you before. So
he has.
Maybe we should.
You think we should let Anthony break
busy.
it in?
Let him cook.
Let him break it in.
I do the best I can. I don't know how to set it off since I haven't seen the format with it, but we'll figure it out.
You just going to present your topic.
That's fair. Maybe we should.
I'll present my topic. I don't know if it's too complicated.
Or maybe we should let Okara set the...
Set the
Okay, go ahead, Okara.
Yeah.
We decided you're going to do it. Go ahead.
So we just decided on me, huh?
Yeah, we decided.
You're the culture king here.
You're the man.
Make it happen. That's funny. All right, well, I do this. Okay, so my topic is trust in a relationship. To explain what I mean by that is how does that look? What is the difference between I would say distrust because of action or insecurity? And to start it off, I will start with one of my favorite quotes that one of my guys always would say to me. If you put a fat man in front of a buffet, eventually he's going to eat. And so the one thing that I have found out or that I have observed in people that I think is faithful is that they avoid temptation instead of trying to resist temptation. And so sometimes when a person decides like, I don't feel comfortable with the behavior, what the other person would say is that they're being insecure. But if you're sitting in front of a buffet, if you find yourself putting yourself in front of the buffet all the time, am I insecure or are you open to some bullshit? Or are you doing some bullshit? So what determines whether a person is insecure or whether they have a reason to distrust?
I got questions.
Go ahead.
What does sitting at the buffet look like?
So, I'm glad you asked. So that would be, let's say I'm in a committed relationship, but I'm out every weekend. Or I'm going on guys trips all the time, or I'm going on girls trips all the time. I find myself constantly in front of my dating pool. Now, what I have noticed is that, so when you have a person, let's say maybe that's their job. I'm not talking about somebody who is working a job or, you know, if you're at work, but I'm talking about somebody. I'm going out every weekend. I'm going out or I'm doing all of these things, putting myself in situations where people who would be interested in me and I would be interested in them, if I'm single or otherwise, that's what sitting in front of the buffet is.
So if it's their job,
I'm not saying people don't take advantage of their job, but Yes.
There's a nuance there.
Yes, that's the nuance.
So, I watch that show. I watch a lot of dating shows, all of them. And so,
Red Balloon.
the Ultimatum. Anybody watch the
Yes,
Ultimatum?
yes, I watched that.
And so,
Never heard
their whole purpose is that they put you in front of they bring couples there. They put you in front of the dating pool. So the couples that they choose all have commonalities and things that they're looking for in a mate, and some of the things that their current mate is not exhibiting, right? So they put them in those situations because what they say is until you are actually challenged on it, you don't actually know if what you got is really what you want, right? And so they go to the 100th degree and they create a fake marriage, and they have them date other people, and then they have them choose one to have an experimental marriage with, and they actually live in the same house together with this other person. So now that's like the ultimate challenge. So and there was a guy, he struggled with it. Struggled with it to the point where the lady that he had chosen to go through the trial marriage with, he was so not present for her at all in the experience because he was worried about who his woman was with, because she had chosen the big sexy black dude with the muscles and stuff, and so he already knew. You said what?
So I think I look at dating or even relationships a little bit different. From what I've seen in the failure dynamics of relationships, it's not who you're with, it's who you chose.
Who you choose.
And so I've found that people are failing in their relationships because their intent on why they're dating are different. It's a difference between dating for convenience and dating for companionship. When you meet someone, although you desire not to be alone, you have to be very careful in the selection process. This is where we fail. We fail on who we give permission to and who we ask to have access to. And when we tend to skip that part and start with other areas like sex and bypassing all the flags that we see because we want to be with someone, we find out all these problems later, and now we having these challenges. When you see like dating shows, like I don't watch dating shows because I think they're geared to divide more than to bring together.
They're very entertaining though.
Oh yeah, so it's watching cats fight.
I'm worried about the couple that signs up for that show. You just
Right.
Ultimatum. I was in trouble the day y'all said.
Right, because
it's a challenge.
If you really understand love and commitment, you wouldn't even put yourself in that position.
You decided
to fail your relationship. Because love, one of my favorite scenes is from the Boomerang movie with Eddie Murphy when he was with Halle Berry, and he went out and he was doing this thing. And when he came back, they got into it, and he was talking about, I love you. She said, well, love should have brought your ass home last night.
But so with the dating show thing, one of them has said verbally and expressed that they're not ready to get married, and the other person is sitting on the limb. Well, I want to get married. So they go on this show so that the person who is not ready to get married can see if there is someone else out there that would make you want to be with somebody else.
My point is,
they
if
go on
you,
the show because they toxic.
my point is, if you're in a real relationship, because I look at the word relationship so powerful, right? I'm not gonna pick you just to be in a relationship.
Right.
For me to give you that title and be involved with that and say relationship, that means I should have done some homework before we got to that conversation.
That's true.
So if you get yourself in a situation where you even open to start entertaining the mindset of someone else's presence, while after you've decided you're in a relationship, you should have been in a relationship.
So then you have to keep in mind the ages.
Ain't no May.
Right.
So
definitely, you're right.
The ages that we're talking about, these are 20-year-olds. So what we're talking about now, we didn't know when we were 20 either.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're talking about the younger people who should be listening to this. That's who should really be listening to the wisdom that we have to share. Because my dad always said, you know, you can learn from your mistakes, but a smarter person learns from other people's mistakes, right? You don't have to make those mistakes. But the people on that show, what I think the point is that gets across, in my opinion, is that every day you have to be with somebody that you're going to choose. So if you're on the fence after 2, 5, 7 years about whether you want to marry this person, but yet you're spending all of this time, I had a guy friend, and I used to talk to him all the time because he was in a relationship with this lady, and he was crazy about her. She did everything for him, right? She just did everything because she wanted to be married and she wanted to have kids. And when he met her, she was 31. And then by the time she got like 33, because, you know, we do have a clock, right? We can't have babies forever. She started saying, well, you know, I want to get married and have some kids. Right. So she went from 31 to 33. He would tell me, he said, I'm not going to marry her. I said, well, why are you holding her up? Then let her go on about her business, because she only got a good 2 or 3 more years to meet somebody and want to have a child with that person. So the thing about the ultimatum, I just brought that up because I think that in a relationship, the trust part is knowing that that person is going to choose you each time.
I have a question, Xavier. You said that he was crazy about her.
Yeah.
And then you talked about all the things she did for him. And so it made me wonder if he was really crazy about her, or if he was crazy about the things, all the things.
He was crazy about the attention. Yeah. And this is the other side of women who focus on men with money. So he was a man with money. So he was crazy about the things that she did. You know, because some women, they get with a dude and they just feel like he should be doing everything for them.
Right.
But she was a woman that actually catered to him. She was a good girl. I thought she was perfect for him, but he did not want to marry her. But he still had issues because his divorce from his first wife. So he still has some scars too. And it had been a while since he was divorced. He should have been healed, but we don't always heal. Sometimes we just keep going. You know, we just don't heal. But in the back of your mind, you like, ain't nobody else gonna never do this to me. And if somebody do this, then I know that they working on this. You know, it's some things that trigger you or whatever. But to your point of trust, I just think that with trust, and trust is earned. I had somebody tell me that you're supposed to give trust until they break the trust. I don't believe in that.
I think that, you know, when you're in a relationship, you just, at some point you decide, okay, I'm going to trust this person. But I think that you can't decide that and be naive in the same breath, right? And so I think actions will tell a person that, you know, whether or not you should be trusted. So for instance, like you just said, you have to be at a place where, okay, you know, you have to trust that that person would just choose you. Well, how do you trust that a person will just choose you if they choose to always put themselves in the company of their liking, or if they're not, or if they're always going to the buffet? Well, because in my opinion, like I prefer monogamy, and so I don't like to see what it is I can do. It's better to avoid.
What keeps you home?
You say what?
I said, I'll be like, what keeps you home?
What keeps me home is my word.
What would keep you home?
My word.
And it's not no. I'm not saying.
Oh.
I'm saying per se. It's like if you're in a relationship, it has to be some measure of value to that person for you to say, I want to be in a relationship with them. What keeps you home from putting yourself in those environments that can be a potential problem? Because I believe a temptation is only what you really want to do anyway. You can put me in a room.
In those situations,
you can put me in a room full of cocaine. If I don't have a desire to do cocaine, I'll never do it.
Right.
You can put me in a room full of, classic example. When I was married, I went to a convention in California, and there was a bikini contest thing going on at the hotel. Tons of beautiful collegiate women there. I had no desire to be around that. I wasn't tempted because I'm in love with my wife.
Well,
It wasn't. My thing is, it's the environment is one thing if you don't expect it, but to purposely put yourself in situations that can pull on your emotions away from somebody you say you're in a relationship with. My question would be is if you know that that's out there, what keeps you home?
It is your commitment.
Is it a
it's what you-
commitment
it's
if
what
you
you said
leave
you
and
was
keep
gonna
putting
do.
yourself in that situation?
So I don't. So okay.
so
For-
you agreeing with me?
I
I don't.
No, because I'm
all right.
right. I'm confused on whether
I'm actually agreeing with what you're saying.
Okay.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Somebody wants to.
Let me
Address
just
the
say
topic.
this real quick.
Okay.
I think that in any situation, like if you solid, so it don't matter, if I'm out, and there's guys all around or whatever, and I might be attracted to some of them, but there's several things that go into choosing a person, and it's not just that physical attraction, so I can go out and see a bunch of guys, but what I know at this age anyway, maybe I didn't know it at 20, but what I know at this age is some stuff that look good, but it ain't got no substance in it whatsoever. It might look good, but it ain't gonna treat you right either. It might look good, but parts of it might not even work. So there's a lot of things that there's a lot of things that make you choose. Okay, I got this at home. The thing about me, those of you who know me, I'm really picky. So when I get in a relationship, I think that dude has to be the greatest thing in the world, cause he done met all of what I be requiring, so he got to be the bomb. And I already have passed over however many other ones, so I know that there's few and far between of the ones that that's just me. That's just how I think. So it don't matter who else you bring in front of me, because I've probably already seen the guy or something like that before and decided that that's not what I wanted. So I think that no matter where you are, because I work in events. I've been in events since I was 15. I'm all over the place. I see men all the time, everywhere. It's really about making that choice, because they gonna flirt, they gonna flirt.
Some would say
That's your job.
You're immune to it until
You're not.
Right, we
Until
tell
you-
ourselves we've seen it all and we experienced it all, but the truth is, it's billions of people in the world. You ain't experienced 1% of it. None of us have experienced
Exactly.
1%
Of the
what's
people-
out there. Not even a full
Well, yeah, not
so
billions.
it has to be
1%. And
Right.
so my question to Akira, because I think the majority of my relationships, I was managing my distrust, right? I didn't have a real trust. And some of it had to do with their behavior, but a lot of it had to do with my experiences before I was even old enough to get into a relationship, right? I can deal with heartbreak, but I can't deal with feeling stupid, right?
No, it's true.
So
That's true.
trusting somebody
Yes.
that you shouldn't have, right, is a surefire way
To feel stupid.
to feel less intelligent. Even though my therapist said, man, wait a minute. If somebody goes and cheats on you and does you wrong, you the one to go, you feel stupid? All right? So he had to check me on it. And the crazy part is that hadn't even been my experience, right? People cheating on me. I became aware of infidelity between some adults in my life when I was 10 years old, and
Absolutely.
it made me, I wasn't even so upset about the infidelity at 10. I was like, how did I not know?
Oh, Lord.
I gotta know
Yeah.
going into this. And so, it created this energy
agree
and culture
with you,
of
man.
managing distrust in relationships. And I think a lot of people go into relationships that way. And so that addresses that insecurity part. But then the other part of me says, okay, my uncle turned 70 years old last year, and we all went to Vegas. We took him to the strip club.
Oh, Lord.
Is that me putting myself in front of temptation?
Okay,
Are
so
you tempted by strippers?
no,
I
that's
didn't get one lap dance. I was banned from my uncle. I was sick of them women on my uncle.
so
And the strippers was over there telling me their life story.
so that's
On the
that goes back to the saying. The saying is, if you put a fat man in front of a buffet, eventually he's gonna eat. So it's not anything to say no one time, two times, three times, or whatever. But the point is that if you keep putting yourself in the position with people who you may find yourself attracted to, who may find you attractive or whatever, then eventually something could happen, or you're open to something. And I'll tell you a story. Like, I remember one time I was in Phoenix. I was with my cousin. She's married, right? And we were in our 20s at the time or whatever. And she was telling me how, her and another cousin of mine who's single, they was out, they'd be kicking it with the Bulls or whatever. And, as she's telling me all of this, I'm like, you go out a lot. You married. What you on? Because that ain't what married women do, right? Like, she in the club, right? And she's like, well, I just like to go. I'm like, yeah, that sound good, but for real, what's really up? Yeah. And then as she kept talking, because most people, unless you a trained liar, the more you talk, the more you tell on yourself. Before then all of a sudden it was, well, my husband, his sex drive is not the same as mine, and this, that, and the other.
So then,
and
that's outside of that.
While she might not have done anything yet, she was open to something. Right. Now, eventually, found out her husband, his sex drive wasn't the same as hers, because that Negro was gay. That's a whole different thing. No, but she found out.
There's that.
He was,
Should we be hearing some music right now?
Wait a minute, man. We wasn't ready for that ending. I thought she was about to give us a lesson in something else.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying.
Man.
So,
that's a plot.
but but it made sense. Like his, but they ended up, getting divorced or whatever. But yeah, the reason why she was out all the time was because what was going on at home. She was open. She was looking. Even if she had not done anything at that point, she was still open.
I think that takes you back to what he was saying as far as when you choose that person up front, depending on, I don't know what, maybe he was, he needed a beard. I think that's what they call it. A beard that covers
They
up
call
for
them purple marriages too now.
Purple marriages?
Lavender.
Here
I go.
Okay.
Pardon me, y'all. I had a cocktail.
Lavender marriages, all of that kind of stuff. But again, people change, and so where he may have been at one point in his life where, because there's been gay people since the beginning, right? They just had to suppress it. Right. And then there were a lot of suicides and a whole lot of other issues going on as a result of that. And so, our society may have changed with it. I don't know what time frame this is. I thought you said something like last year or something like that.
No, but I was in my 20s.
And you did say you're 20, so that's been like 70 years ago. So
you don't have to take that abuse so carefully.
Y'all see that?
If you kick the fight off, I'm gonna jump in and help you. Make sure she don't win.
Y'all see how she jabbed me?
Three of us. We don't have to take this time.
But I'm just saying, so over time, our society started accepting different things as well. Even before whatever administration that was, where you could be male, female, or both, or none, or whatever, but still it became more accepted. So maybe as things became more accepted in society, in our social setup, then maybe he became, more comfortable with being who he was and letting it be known that that's who he was or whatever. But, it's about who you, not ignoring those red flags, like he said earlier, not ignoring the red flags. And then the whole thing that you said about, insecurity. Insecurity is always a personal thing, right? So you have to love yourself and be secure in yourself first before you can even really get with anybody else, because otherwise you're going to always feel inferior to everybody outside the front door. If you don't feel like you're worthy, as soon as your man or woman walk out the front door, everybody want them, and probably nobody want them, but you think everybody want them. Everybody want them, and they want everybody, right? So that insecurity thing, you have to, before you even get into a relationship, you really got to deal with that insecurity within yourself first. Because if you know that you the bomb, whether anybody else thinks so or not, Somebody might think that's called crazy, but it's going to keep you sane because you're going to feel good about yourself, whether anybody else tell you that you're good about yourself or not.
I agree with you, Xavia.
What?
In theory.
Thank you.
But the truth is that people cheat on worthy people all the goddamn time.
Worthy to who, though? That's the thing.
Worthy to anybody.
But you might. So there's this guy, and I've been talking about him because there's this guy that was trying to date me, right? On paper, he seemed worthy to anybody. I was like, why the hell is this dude even single? He seemed worthy to anybody. But have y'all ever heard a woman say he was a good father, he was a good provider, but he was a horrible husband?
Yes,
sure.
I've heard that.
So people think that because you on the outside, he feed the homeless. He got different programs to help people get skills and stuff to get jobs. You know, on paper, this dude looked like I'm like, how the heck did I actually? What is? But then as I got to know him, I'm like, oh yeah, that's why he been divorced twice. You know, that's why he's still single after 8 years of being divorced. All of that kind of stuff, because once you get to know that dude, unless you are enamored with the money that he make, once you get to know the dude himself, yeah, he gonna probably be single.
Everything you said is valid, right? But if those things didn't exist, it doesn't mean that a person won't step out on that person. That they could be a good provider, a good father, and a good husband, and a good sex partner. That does not guarantee fidelity, unfortunately, because most of the time the fidelity is connected to who the person is.
1000%.
So in the case of
That's
his
true,
cousin,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even have to know the details or whatever, but if she was perfect and he was gay, guess what? It's never going to be worthy. And so some people, you know, that's just their.
Can I add in on that too as well? You know, there are some people, no matter how bad the situation is, they're not going to violate the relationship. And there are some people, no matter how good the relationship is, they're going to always cheat. You have to know the character of these people. If you are married to somebody, I would like to believe that you put that work in to know them before you said I do. This is where the problem comes in. That's why divorce rate is over 50%. We only got 31% of black families even married. It's because we have a lot of failure, and that's what I was going back to, the selection process. You know, men ask for permission, women give permission. And if you're not giving permission to the people you did your homework on to be able to allow to be in your life, the failure is not just them for not reaching out to what you'd expected. You didn't qualify them to say I do.
You know what's wild though, bro?
Go ahead. She's been waiting.
Yep.
Right. Go ahead.
Okay. To piggyback on her first comment and actually your comment, we all forget, or she actually said it, choices. We all have to remember everything's a choice. Bottom line, everything is a choice. Do you want to do right or do you want to do wrong? And then your comment about divorce rate, my grandparents were married 75 years because they made the choice to make it work. It wasn't always, my grandma was a hellion. I know she was. I don't know how my granddaddy did it. But in saying that, I don't know all the details. He could have cheated, maybe did, whatever. But they still decided to work through it. Now in our day and time, social media has been a platform for so many positive things, but it has also made it easier to say, oh, look at that over there, which is a snippet. And ain't really what's true.
Highlight reel.
10 minutes of somebody's 24-hour day, and society has made it easy for people to just say, oh, fuck it, I'm going to find me somebody else. And the cycle continues to be a vicious cycle, and we as African-American people are not getting our counseling.
We're not getting our counseling.
Go
ahead.
I just wanted to say this because, like, a lot of times when you are sitting on the panel and you have the educated people who, obviously, everybody is. We always like to say, well, you need to be this, you need to be healed before you get into this relationship. You need to do this, you need to do that. When the reality is that the vast majority of people are not healed, right? And so now you have to ask yourself, all right, what do they do? Not have sex, not have connection, not have whatever? Like,
They
you
go out here
really
and
can't.
terrorize people.
It's pretty much it's a lot to ask. It's a nice theory that's what we should all do, but we're not doing that. And so now, when you are in the position and you are not healed, how is that navigated? And I think the issue is that a lot of people, they start out a certain way. They don't listen to what is said about them. And they become our age. And while they have learned what their red flags is, as far as what they don't like, what they don't know is the toxicity in themselves.
Yes.
I'm
that
so
is
glad you
so
said
true.
that.
And that is really the real problem, is that people have an issue with being accountable for themselves and looking into what it is that they've actually done wrong. They just think that something is wrong with everybody, even though they have a history of things not working out. I think that's what's so difficult in relationships, especially when you are, I guess most of our ages, is that it's easy to see everybody else. It's real hard to see yourself.
Yep.
Big facts.
And I there's a nice theory what we all should do, but nobody really listens and pays attention to themselves.
So the wild part of that, right, is it's almost impossible to see yourself while you're single, right? That you don't know how unhealed you are romantically until you get into a relationship, right? Because while you're single, it's perfectly okay to be selfish and to prioritize yourself and to be all about yourself because it's just you, right? And so it's not until you get into a real relationship that some of the traumas and the triggers and the single habits and the selfishness gets exposed.
So it's very true that we don't see ourselves until we get into a relationship. And we can think and want that we're ready for marriage, ready for all of that. But until we see how we're interacting with other people, then we see things that we really didn't realize. I just got out of like a 10-month relationship, and this guy looked great on paper. We had so much in common. And so you're almost like, okay, this got to be it, because I decided before I met him, okay, I'm cool with being by myself. I may never get married. I was cool with that. And then here he comes. But dealing with him, I realized some things about myself. I realized that I can be, a bit of a pushover. You know how you kind of go along with things? I'm like, this man was all in my backyard. He was doing things. And I realized after I broke up with him, I said, I didn't even want to go in my backyard, because I had allowed him to do so many things in my yard. He would just hang out in my yard, and I wasn't hanging out in my yard.
He made that his man cave.
Right. I'm like, wow. But, I realized I really have to check in with me. What do I want? What do I like? What do I not like? And until we really, really know how to take care of ourselves, we're not ready. We're not ready.
I like that.
So the one thing I've gotten myself to is like I don't really care about anybody else's behavior at this point. Like, I care about it if I'm interacting with you on whether or not, it's something I approve of or something that I'm good with or not. But like after it's all over, I don't really bother with what somebody else did. I only concentrate on like what it is that I could have changed in the situation. And sometimes it goes back to, I shouldn't have made that choice, because a lot of times, you know, we see things, right? And at the time, it's like a yellow light, right? It's like, oh, you slow down, but maybe I make it right before it red or whatever, you know. You're like, should I continue? Is it, you know, or whatever? And then, you know, and basically what that pause is that maybe that's going to be a red flag later, right? But you still go because, you know, they may be supplying something. They may make you feel good in some type of way about yourself, however. And then, you know, as you go further, you realize that yellow light wasn't really yellow. It had changed red right before you got to the intersection, and you still went,
It's a
right?
and it's a red light camera.
And it's a red light camera,
Man.
and you got the ticket,
Not
right?
the red light camera.
And so, so I try not to, you know, concern myself. I think the thing is that, especially when it comes to trust, the person you need to trust more is yourself, and whether or not you trust the decisions that you make. Because a lot of times when we have a history of making bad decisions, especially when it comes to relationships, even if you have a good thing, you will still be suspicious of it if you don't trust yourself. And I think that's, you know, that's the work that some of us, I guess, maybe not do but should do.
Come on the mic.
It's been so much said. I'm gonna try to stick to this 60 seconds.
Please.
The trust, it's a lot with the word trust, and I agree. You should trust yourself. I don't know if I necessarily, what's your name, brother? Inyatu. I don't know if, and I hope I heard you correctly, when you are in a relationship, that's the moment where you see the level of toxic behaviors within yourself. If you can do that, cool, but a lot of times that really isn't the case, right? I think afterwards is where you really should, once you're out of that relationship, I don't think people do a good job at really unpacking their role in the demise of their relationship, right? I've been married before. I'm married now. Thank you for that shout out earlier. I've been in a lot of, Okura is my man, 100 grand. So we've talked about what I've done, what I should have done. I don't think people do a good job at really unpacking their role in the demise of their relationship. I also don't think people have accountability partners to see their blind spot. Sometimes it's hard to see your toxic behavior, especially if you have a bunch of people cheerleading and spirit fingers around you. I don't know everybody's age here. I'm 50, but in my lifetime, I value relationships, romantically, platonically, professionally. Yeah. And what you'll find out is your toxic behavior within relationships sometimes spill over into your circle, other relationships, whether it's family, whether it's casual friends, whatever, right? So the real work, and what was the term? The trust. You have to trust yourself enough that when you're out of that relationship, just take some time. Get quiet by yourself. A lot of people don't like being alone, but that is the best therapy you can have.
Absolutely.
But trusting yourself to really unpack what your role is and look at it from different perspectives. There might be family members have told you some behavior that has mirrored in your relationship. But nobody really wants to do that because that's a lot of hard work. And it's hurtful and it's painful, especially if you've exhausted several years.
Absolutely.
And now you're 50, and when you that aha moment that a person on the network used to say, I ain't going to say her name, but, you know, you have to like, it's a shame that people go through life and they're 50 and 60 and they look back and they have that aha moment, and now you got to look back at all the damage and the carcasses of relationships that you've been in that you
laid out.
If you would have just took some time
Absolutely.
to assess, damn, what did I do?
Yes.
What could I have done better? And somebody mentioned therapy. Who said that?
I think the young lady that was up
No,
here.
one of the brothers up here said
Get-
therapy
take counseling.
earlier.
Yeah.
Black man in
My
therapy.
therapist, yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. But everybody, I support that.
I wanted to catch the parallel at the beginning, though. You said that I said that the relationships expose your traumas or the toxicity. And when you went on to speak, I thought you were kind of saying the same thing, but that it's easier to see afterwards.
I think when you're in relationships, don't start playing the music. Don't start playing the music. I think if you can identify it within a relationship, that shows a level of maturity, and that's great. Regardless, I mean, if there's toxic behavior, regardless of when you find it, just find it.
Right.
And then work with it, own it, and then work with it, right?
Right.
But I think, what I think happens in some relationships, I know it's happened with me, but I think I can't be the only person on this earth this plays out for. It's so much noise in a relationship that it's hard to like really see it. And even if you do see it, it's hard to be in a position to work at it, especially if you're not mature, especially if you're not somebody who has had, who reflects often. I think New Year's Eve, a lot of people want to reflect on life and what they did, but I think you should be reflecting throughout your life.
It's a
Consistently. That's maturity. And I don't think we always do that. But if you can, to your point, if you can find those toxic behaviors within the relationship, I think that's dope, because now you have a partner who can work with you on that.
How else is your marriage gonna work? Right? You 50, you married, y'all gonna be together for the next 50 years.
Shit, that's 100, bro.
I know. When you plan on checking out?
I don't know.
I'm gonna be here.
Yeah.
But so I imagine over the course of the next 20, 30, however long y'all make it alive, because the marriage is gonna make it to death. There gonna be challenges. There's gonna be changes amongst you all. So to have a healthy relationship, you have to develop the ability to be flexible and fluid and to adjust and correct yourself while in the relationship.
I agree.
Can I add in on that too as well? I think the assumption is that we have that ability. This is where counseling and therapy plays a major role, because it gives you a neutral voice. And a lot of times when I counsel a lot of couples, a lot of them are coming there because they're so scared and nervous about being shown who they're not, because they've developed a self-identity within themselves in that marriage to make themselves super people. One of the terms I used to hear all the time that just wore me out every time I come, we're a black power couple. We're a black power couple. We're a black power couple. And I used to be like, well, what is that? What is a black power couple? I said my mom and dad was married 64 years. They raised their children to be successful, and they worked hard with little. That's a black power couple to me. So what does that define for you as a black power couple? And you'd be surprised how people perceive themselves to be greater than what the world sees them. So when they get in situations like you talk about counseling and therapy, they avoid those arenas because it shines a light in those spaces that they've been hiding with the cup, with the tablecloth and the pillows, and it puts them in where they have to be honored. They have to own up to who they're not. And I get exactly what you're saying, but I think the percentage of people who are actually mature enough to do that is a lot smaller than the people who are not.
Oh yeah, no, it's super low. I think definitely 90-something% of people.
Most people
don't
really
have a clue.
Want to hear somebody else tell them.
Yeah.
Even though I got a PhD, but I'll never think I'm the smartest person in the room. I'll always try to be open to someone else's voice, because education is education.
I think we spoke about the importance of therapy, and we bring that to light, and it's more acceptable now for people to be in therapy. But still, a lot of people just lie to their therapists and manipulate.
Oh, absolutely.
Manipulate their therapists, and so just getting in therapy, that's a good step, right? That's better than not being in therapy at all. But if you hiding all the bad parts and only sharing your side of the story and the good parts with your therapist, you really, you're
victim.
You're actually making yourself worse.
That's what they tell
okay. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this part. If you guys can give me maybe 30 seconds of final words. Let's start right here, and Yatu, since you were talking. 30 seconds.
Trust is what Okera spoke about. I do think you have to trust yourself, and you have to be brave. I think that a lot of people approach relationships and their goal becomes to not get their heart broke. But I think having your heart broke is not supposed to make you recluse and close yourself off. It's actually supposed to break your heart open. So I'm loving fully because I'm no longer afraid of getting my heart broke, especially getting it broke because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. It ain't going to be for that reason if I get my heart broken. So I think that trust is about courage, it being about brave and understanding the process of life, love, and romance, and that it's not supposed to be just a fairy tale, that it is a process. There are ups and downs, and then when you know that going into it, you have different expectations.
Okay, Anthony, your final 30 seconds of words.
I think trust is measured with consistency. I think the more consistent you are in a certain behavior, the more I can be able to trust that it's going to be a repetitive behavior. This is why we're supposed to court and do those different things, so that we can see that there's some measure of consistency here. Are you just giving me an image, or are you giving me your reality? And that only comes through time. I think we use the word trust too loosely, and I think we give it to people who haven't qualified to wear it yet. And it sets us up to start saying things like "I do," and "I'm in a relationship" too soon. Absolutely. And then you end up coming to see me down the road.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think at the end of it all, it's like everything else. You decide to trust. I think that you can decide to trust somebody, but you can't be naive in your decision. And it's important to pay more attention to their behavior. If you pay attention to people, you can discover the truth, as long as you are logical. And I think you can be logical within your emotion, because emotion does taint. It does have flaws, but it's just important to trust what you see. That yellow light is normally red.
I think, just real quick, I think that what you said about afterwards, because sometimes we may see issues that we have during, but I do think that we all need to, instead of hopping into another relationship, because some people are relationship junkies, and I think that we really should take some time and identify your patterns. You know, what is it that you keep doing that doesn't yield you the result that you want? You know, identify your patterns first so that you can learn then to trust your judgment, because you do have to be able to trust yourself. He just said you got to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself to make a good decision. And if you keep making bad decisions, you need to figure out what that pattern is. What is it? Why are you just, you choosing the fine dudes, you choosing the sex dude? You know, what is it that you're ignoring? What are your patterns? What are you choosing? Identify your patterns first, and then you may learn to trust your decisions. And so that is our trust conversation. Yeah. All right.